Like, I don't like when things sound like perfectly on a grid and perfectly like almost like it's all programmed and electronic. I mean, if you're bringing great musicians in to record, let it be real and let it breathe and let there be imperfections in it, because that's what real music is. It's full of beauty and imperfection and humanity.
I got to speak with Damien, but Whiplash, I went to music school. So Whiplash is like instantly one of my all-time favorite films. It's like
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
Hit close to home, but yeah. So I'm really excited. I love Babylon very much. I'm excited to ask you about it. But I also just saw the announcements about the La La Land like Broadway adaptation. I know you and Damien work famously close with each other, and I didn't see him listed as directing it or writing the book or anything. So is your collaboration kind of shifting? Because I know you're still working with Pasek and Paul on the musical.
No, I don't think anything's shifting. I mean, Damien's next movie, I'll dive in and be as obsessed with, working on his film score as always. I think this is just because it's staged. It's sort of a different, it's just sort of a different thing. So I think Damien's will sort of closely oversee the whole thing and hopefully make sure that as the book comes together and as the direction comes together and as my new music and Pasek and Paul's new lyrics come together, that we're all, on the right track and we're all doing justice to his film. But I think, I don't know, my understanding is that, and I don't even know if I don't know, how involved he's been so far in the writing of it, but he'll definitely, as the book was coming together, it's just sort of, it takes a lot of adaptation to convert what was written for a movie and what was sort of made with cinematic language. I mean, so much of his movie is cinematic language. It's the long shots and the steady cams and the cranes and all of that. And I think stage is such a different art form that there are directors that just know how to use the stage and reimagine stuff. So that's my understanding of why it's different people. But I think, and I hope, Damien's going to definitely be very involved in it as it comes together.
I'm sure things are shifting by the moment with that, but are there any areas that you can hint at that you're excited to like expand on things or anything like that for the musical?
I haven't started yet. I mean, I know the book is being written. I haven't seen it. I don't think Damien's seen it yet. So pretty soon we'll have to sort of see where it's at, and then I'll dive in. Pasek and Paul will dive in. Like I said, hopefully Damien will do whatever he wants to do with it. And but I know very little about it. I just know that pretty soon I'm told we're gonna have to dive in, and it's gonna take a lot of work. It'll need more songs. It'll need a lot of reimagining, like I said, to sort of, because it's a new art form. So it'll be a lot of work, but I just haven't started yet.
So on to Babylon. Congratulations on the Golden Globe, by the way. The score is phenomenal for this movie. I especially love it, I think, because so many film scores sound very clean, obviously played by the best musicians in the world. And this one feels so human and raw, and like you got incredible musicians and then pushed them to like really do something amazing. Was that kind of part of the mission statement behind the score?
Yeah, like you're getting at, it's never been a huge part of my process to sort of select the musicians as carefully as on this one. This one, it was really, I got really involved in looking for the right musicians. On YouTube was one of the places I went, and we ended up with musicians who are total legends who lots of people know. I should have known. I don't know the jazz scene as well as other people. So like Sean Jones is a total trumpet legend, but I first saw him play on YouTube. I was like, oh, that's the guy. Like, how do we track him down? He's so busy touring and teaching and all these other things. It took like a few years to get him to come to LA. Other incredible musicians who I was not familiar with, but are, just incredible, like Dante Winslow, a trumpeter from LA, Ludo Lewis, another trumpeter, Leo Pellegrino, a baritone sax player who's known. He's got this band, Too Many Zoos, and there were videos of Leo dancing in the New York subway, literally dancing while he plays the sax, spinning around, kicking. I just went searching for like dance music on a sax because that's what we were demoing. One of our early ideas was dance music on acoustic instruments like a sax. So I was playing all it all virtual instruments. And then I went on YouTube being like, who plays dance music on a sax? And this guy Leo does exactly that. So we got him to record. This amazing saxophone player, Jacob Cesny, plays all these improvised solos with all these real sort of screaming, kind of wailing techniques he uses. So lots of really special musicians with really special voices, got them all together. And then, I love that you're calling it human, because we try to let them bring their voices, bring their authenticity to it, really be themselves. And there's a ton of like editing and mixing that goes into it, but we try not to clean stuff up too much. Like, I don't like when things sound like perfectly on a grid and perfectly like almost like it's all programmed and electronic. I mean, if you're bringing great musicians in to record, let it be real and let it breathe and let there be imperfections in it, because that's what real music is. It's full of beauty and imperfection and humanity. So we just wanted it to. There's also a lot of elements, on purpose, where I've made it messy on purpose. Something Damien would always talk about at the parties with the bands playing at parties is he'd always use the word unhinged, or he'd talk about going off the rails. Going off the rails was a phrase he used a lot. So a lot of times we were pushing the band to like go faster. And then I was writing things, even in the scores, I've written things that are intentionally at like different tempos than the rest of the band. So you might have the band going at 140 BPM, but then I've written a part like metal bucket, quarter notes at 94 BPM. So just somebody hitting a metal bucket at a completely different tempo. And there are a bunch of things like that where I've intentionally layered things that are at the wrong tempo or in the wrong key, just to kind of like create that messiness and create that controlled sort of cacophony in some of these tracks.
Wow, that sounds like it'd be a fun score to look at.
Yeah.
I really love Manny and Nelly's theme, and I love how many different ways it comes in and out of the score, with different instruments and different tempos and stuff. Because the story of this movie is so sprawling, did you make an effort to like really kind of drill the theme in to keep everyone grounded as the story was going on?
Yeah, that's something Damien and I always love doing, is sort of seeding melodies and themes and then calling them back and bringing them back and having them belong to characters or ideas and using them in really purposeful ways. So whenever they come back, they have meaning. So in this movie, pretty much all of the melodies are planted at that Wallach party, at that first party. And they belong to different characters and the introduction of different characters and different ideas. And then we bring them back, usually often in very disguised forms. So even things like, sometimes we really twist them. So probably people don't even hear the connection, but maybe subliminally they feel it. So like Voodoo Mama, which is the track that Nelly dances to, it's her big dance track at that party. That riff that's played originally by real sort of, heavy, unison horns. Ba-da-ba-ba-dee-ba-da-da-da-da. We bring that back in kind of disguised forms in a couple of the cues, including like at the end of the movie when they go into the blockhouse, which is that really creepy dungeon. And there's music that's kind of horror music almost. It's like droning male vocals, kind of Gregorian vocals. I found this guy on, again, YouTube. I was searching YouTube. He was on Britain's Got Talent and Georgia's Got Talent and all these other, I think he might be from Romania or Georgia or somewhere in that part of the world. And he does alien voices. So he recorded all these alien voices. So the cue is that, but then underneath that cue, there is these pitched gongs going bing, 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 calling back the Voodoo Mama theme to kind of tie it back to Nelly, to make us think of Nelly, because Nelly is why they are here. Nelly is what matters in this part of the movie if this plan doesn't work. With the Manny Nelly theme itself, the romantic theme, we try to paint that across as much of the movie as we can. Certainly any scene that has them together is we are calling back that theme, so it continues to sort of, evoke their relationship and the sort of messy romantic feelings of their relationship. We also use it in up-tempo versions, so it is the baritone sax solo that Leo recorded. That piece, when we use it in an up-tempo version where we can, and then we use it for the Manny-Nelly romantic scenes, slowed down quite a bit, harmonized, to give us more of a sort of a bittersweet quality, and then instrumentation that really just belongs to those two characters. Anytime those two characters are together, we have instrumentation that belongs just to them, which is three pianos mixed together. The first piano is just a very beautiful, mellow Steinway, like a mid-sized grand piano, not too big and majestic, not too small, just a mid-sized Steinway. The second piano is a spinet piano, a small piano that's been treated with tacks in the hammers to give it a twang, and then has been detuned a bit. So it's a little bit out of tune. And then the third piano is a very, very out of tune upright. So when you mix these three pianos together, you get the sweetness from the one piano, you get the sourness from the other two pianos, and it creates this sort of like fragile, broken quality that just felt like their relationship to us. So to get back to what you're asking, I've gone off on all these tangents. We're calling back material that we've planted and that has been used elsewhere, but we're giving it its own tempo, its own instrumentation, its own out of tune quality that belongs just to these characters that just felt like their relationship. So whenever possible, we're trying to tie things to each other and call things back when we can.
I think one of the most powerful moments in the movie is probably when Sydney plays Damascus Thump. Like there's that whole sequence, and the music is so just like driving and dark, and it feels like, an extension of his mind at the time, probably. Was it a challenge at all to come up with something that seemed realistically like it could be played on stage, but also kind of work as underscore there?
That was one of the trickiest cues, because like you say, it is a performance, and we have to believe it could come from the band, even though like so much of the other music in this movie, it's not 20s jazz and doesn't sound like what you'd expect, but it could be played by the band. It is the instrumentation of a couple trumpets, few saxes, rhythm section. It's built again around a real driving riff, like so many of the other tracks in this that are built around kind of rock and roll riffs. This one is an even simpler. It's just a tritone. Dun, 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 dun. It's just this tritone riff that kind of drives the whole thing. And then you have the trumpet solo over the top, which is this very aggressive, grating sort of solo, because he's kind of going through something. He's being asked to do something very unpleasant, very humiliating. So we have to get inside of his head and understand his anger and his pain. But also, this piece of music carries us into some other storylines. You see Jack racing down the highway in his car to go confront Irv Thalberg. Jack is pissed off for his own reasons. You have Manny marching down the hallway. He's lost Nellie. He's having problems with Nellie. And then of course, the Sydney storyline is the main storyline going on in this sequence. So you have all these characters who are kind of on their own missions. They're all angry about something, and it had to kind of serve as score for these other parts. But most importantly, you had to get inside Sydney's head, and you had to understand his anger. And one of my favorite part of the sequence is the trumpet solo stops at one point. He drops out, and the band just keeps going with the riff. And Damien pushes in on his face as he's debating, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to finish the song? I think that's what he's thinking. I don't think it's spelled out maybe it is in the script, but I think that's my interpretation of, is he thinking like, should I walk off the set? Should I keep going? What am I doing here? And pushes in, and then he picks his horn back up and finishes and goes higher and higher and higher. And the song gets faster and faster. And he ends with this big squeal, and it ends. And at that point, he wipes his face, and he gets out of there and quits, never comes back to the studio. But that moment that's just a pure acting moment for Jovan Adepo, as we push in on his face, and it's just such an incredible piece of acting. So I just had to clear space for that. I just had to, trumpet's gone, and we're just the riff just goes underneath it, and we're just creating, I don't know how many seconds, but a good amount of time for Jovan to just be an incredible actor in that moment.
Yeah, he's able to do so much just with his face there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then finally, quickly, I read one of your interviews where you I think you were a little frustrated as being like almost pigeonholed as like the jazz composer sometimes. And obviously like your music for First Man is so not that, and it's beautiful. But I was wondering, is there a kind of score that you just, in the back of your mind would really love to write on a future project?
That's a good question. I mean, I do hope to get to, explore new things. I'm waiting to hear what Damien wants to do next. I think he's thinking about what he wants to write next. And yeah, I hope we get to I love learning new things on First Man. It was good to get away from jazz, and it was good to learn. I got a little bit more into, well, I'd never used anything electronic really. So to get to use the theremin, to get to use some modular synthesizers, to get to play around with plugins and other production ideas, that was really fun. To get to even explore on a very surface level. There are people who have spent their whole life, learning that stuff, and I want to get better at it. So hopefully I'll get to explore more production and electronic things. I would love to get better at that stuff. Genre wise, I don't know, maybe an action movie or an adventure movie or something like that would be fun. I'm just committed to whatever Damien does. So whatever he wants to do, I'll do it. But I do love exploring new things and learning new genres and new ways of writing music. So hopefully we get to each movie, there will be something new to explore.
That's awesome. That's I think all I got for you today. So thank you for taking the time. And I'm, again, like huge fan of both of your work. So
thank you so much.
Great to get to that.
Great talking with you.
All right.